Hey there, pirates. Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. If there's one thing that has always been clear in One Piece, it's that the Marines never completely gave up on the idea of capturing Luffy. From the day he declared himself the next king of the pirates, the world government set its sights on him as a threat that needed to be eliminated. But deep down, they never managed to stop him. Every time Luffy found himself in an impossible situation, he found a way out. He survived Eni's lobby, escaped from Impel Down, faced execution at Marineford, and left Wano stronger than ever. But what if at some point things hadn't gone so well for him? Maybe in an alternate universe, the Marines finally managed to capture him. And if that happened, it wouldn't be a simple capture. They would know that putting Luffy on a regular prison ship wouldn't work. He had already proven that he was capable of escaping from the worst situations. So this time, they wouldn't make the same mistake. Perhaps they would use a carefully planned trap, something designed especially for him. It could have happened right after the events of Egghead. Because if we stop to think, the world government was already in a state of desperation after everything that had happened. The appearance of Gear 5, the destruction of Kizaru's fleet, Vegapunk's escape, all of it left the Gorosei with no choice but to act with full force. If Luffy were captured, it wouldn't be accidental, it would be a high-level operation, planned in advance. What could have happened is that after the fight against Saturn and Kizaru, Luffy was exhausted. He had already pushed his body beyond its limits multiple times, and even someone like him has moments of vulnerability. And that's when the Marines would take advantage. As the Straw Hat ship tried to escape from Egghead, a fleet of Marine ships could have surrounded the Thousand Sunny from all sides. Maybe Akainu was leading the attack personally, or perhaps it was someone new, someone the fans had yet to meet. But one thing was certain, Luffy was surrounded. This time, the Marines wouldn't make the mistake of underestimating him. They would have a plan to deal with Gear 5, some technology developed by the SSG, maybe a new type of sea stone cuffs that drain energy more efficiently. Perhaps Vegapunk had developed something before being captured, and the world government took advantage of it. The Straw Hats would fight with everything they had. Zoro and Sanji would cut through the enemy ships. Jinbei would try to maneuver the Sunny out of the blockade, but the fleet was too large. The Marines had already learned that the only way to deal with Luffy was to separate him from his crew. So, in the middle of the chaos, one of the admirals perhaps, Kizaru, still resentful over his defeat, would use his speed to reach Luffy before he could react. Luffy would try to fight back, but his body wouldn't respond the way he wanted. After so much effort, he wouldn't be able to activate Gear 5 again. The last thing his friends would see was a flash of light and Luffy disappearing from their grasp. And so, for the first time since Marineford, Monkey D. Luffy was in the hands of the Marines. This time, however, the situation was different. He was no longer a rookie pirate defying the world order. He was one of the most dangerous men in the world, the one who carried the will of Nika. The Marines knew that if Luffy escaped again, there would be no more chances to capture him. So instead of taking him to Impel Down, where he had already caused chaos before, they had another destination in mind. What few might have imagined was that Luffy wouldn't be taken to a simple prison. He would be transported to Mariajois, to a place even more secret than any regular prison. Because this time, the Gorosei wanted to deal with him personally. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats were devastated. They had never lost Luffy like this before. Even in the worst situations, they always believed that somehow he would find a way back. But now, he wasn't there. He wasn't just missing. He had been taken to the heart of the enemy. The news of Luffy's capture spread quickly across the world. The Marines made sure to announce their victory, not just to other pirates, but to everyone who believed in Luffy's name. They wanted the world to know that the man who claimed to be the next king of the pirates had been defeated. What they didn't realize, however, was that this very news would become the trigger for something much bigger. Because if there's one thing Luffy has done throughout his journey, it's winning allies. He was never just another pirate. He was someone who brought people together. And now, all of them were preparing to rescue him. The first to react was Trafalgar Law. After everything they had been through together, he knew he couldn't just ignore it. Kid, even after his defeat against Shanks, also heard the news, and though reluctant, knew this was a chance to turn the tables against the world government. But it wasn't just the supernovas. Sabo, hearing what had happened, didn't think twice. He had already lost one brother before. He wouldn't lose another. Shanks, who had always kept his distance from Luffy's affairs, now realized that he could no longer stand idle. He knew this moment would come, but he never imagined it would happen so soon. And then, something no one expected began to happen. The allies Luffy had made throughout his life started to gather. The Straw Hat Grand Fleet, which had once promised to be there when Luffy needed them, was ready to fight. But that wasn't all. Because when the news reached Wano, Momonosuke and the Red Scabbards knew they couldn't ignore it. Yamato, who had decided to explore the world, knew that there was no more time for adventures. It was time to act. Dragon, upon hearing about the capture of his son, finally made his move. The revolution could no longer wait. And so, something that no one in the world government had ever anticipated began to form. An alliance of unimaginable proportions proportions, uniting revolutionaries, pirates, and even former enemies with a single goal: rescue Monkey D. Luffy. They didn't know exactly where he was, but if there was a place the world government would take someone like him, it could only be Geoise. And if that were the case, then this wouldn't just be a rescue mission, it would be something much bigger. The world was about to change again. Geoise had never been invaded, at least not successfully. The world government always prided itself on keeping the holy city impregnable above all other places in the world. It was the heart of power, the throne of the celestial dragons, where the most important decisions were made in secret. But now, one name echoed through its halls: Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy didn't know exactly where he was. All he knew was that the room where they kept him was cold, dark, and covered by kairoseki walls. He felt his powers drained, his body heavy, but that didn't stop him from laughing. The guards looked at him with contempt. No prisoner behaved like this. None of them smiled after being captured. But Luffy, even in captivity, was still Luffy. "Hey, do you think this will hold me?" he asked with a lazy grin. None of the guards responded. But the truth was, even they knew this prison wouldn't last forever. Because what they didn't know, but Luffy could feel, was that something was coming. He couldn't explain how, but since awakening Gear 5, he had started to feel things that once seemed impossible. It was as if the entire world was connected in a way he had never noticed before. And now, even imprisoned, he could feel it. They were coming. And somewhere inside Geoise, another presence stirred. A silent, almost instinctive fear. Because the Geoise knew what was coming. And they feared only one name: Nika. The Navy prepared like never before. Akainu led the line of defense, with Kizaru and Fujitora by his side. But even they weren't ready for what was to come. The fleet appeared on the horizon like a storm. The revolutionaries attacked from one side, the pirates from the other. The combined forces were so numerous that even the world government didn't know how to handle it. In the midst of the chaos, Shanks moved through the battlefield with a seriousness few had ever seen. Law used his powers to carve a path. Sabo and Dragon led the revolutionaries in an attack that was not just for Luffy's rescue, it was against the very system that enslaved the world. But in the end, it was Zoro who reached the prison first. He cut through enemies without hesitation, taking down admirals and soldiers relentlessly. Sanji was not far behind, breaking through any obstacles in the way. The Straw Hat Pirates knew this was the most important fight of their lives. And then, when they finally broke open the prison doors, Luffy was there. He looked at his friends, smiled, and stood up. "Well, you guys took your time. The true Nika. The battle didn't end with the rescue, because when Luffy stepped out of that cell, something changed. Something the Geoise had feared for a long time. Gear 5 awakened again. But this time, it wasn't just a transformation. It was as if the very sky trembled at the sight of Luffy rising. The Geoise, for the first time, hesitated, because standing before them wasn't just a pirate. It was Nika. And the moment he smiled, they knew they had made a mistake, because Luffy wasn't there to escape. He was there to change the world. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.